Our guest today is a curator who will help unlock a treasure of fascinating facts on California's Black history, including slavery, civil rights, and the coming of age of debutantes. Joining us today is assistant curator at the California African American Museum. We have Taylor Bytherwood Porter. Thank you for joining us this morning.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah,
Excited to be here.
we're excited to chat with you about this. So tell us about your exhibit, California Bound, Slavery on the New Frontier, 1848 to 1865.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. So, with that exhibition, myself and co curator Tyreed Boyd Pates, we were looking at California's involvement with enslavement and how it entered into the Union in 1850 and what that really meant. I think historically we know that California entered into the Union as a free state, but what I think is really interesting is, with part of that, it comes with the Compromise of 1850, where it is strengthening the Fugitive Slave Act. So again, I'm thinking of the movie 10 years a slave
Mm-hmm.
and what that really meant for African Americans who were seeking freedom and who had to be brought back. With that, California was very much kind of involved in triggering that reinforcement and then also enacting its own special California fugitive slave law later in 1852.
Wow. And I mean, we've been taught about the California Gold Rush in the mid 1800s, but many don't know about the California Fugitive Slave Law of 1852. What was the significance of that law and how did it affect Black gold miners at that time?
Yeah, absolutely. So, for me, I really think of, people who were being enslaved Africans who were being brought to California during the gold rush, so in 1848. And what that meant was so when California became a free state in 1850, people who were brought to California, enslaved people who were brought to California before, it was this, okay, now we're free. However, enslavers who were still very much active in the state of California wanted to reclaim their property. So in 1852, California introduced its own kind of law where people could reclaim their enslaved Africans for up to 1 year. However, that law kept being extended, and so it continued until 1855.
Wow. I mean, a lot to be learned here at the California African American Museum. I understand in 1961, President John F. Kennedy and California Governor Pat Brown greeted 28 Black debutantes at a very prestigious cotillion at the Beverly Hilton Hotel. What was the significance of that moment and what led up to it?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I think that night was just really an amazing night, just altogether. Governor Pat Brown was running against Nixon for the governor race. Governor Brown had kind of low approval ratings. So President John F. Kennedy came into town to kind of support Governor Brown. One of the events that they were holding that night on November the 18th was a fundraiser at the Palladium where Nat King Cole was one of the performers. But also at that time, Nat King Cole, his daughter, Carol Cookie Cole, was coming out that day from the Los Angeles chapter of the Lynx Incorporated at the Beverly Hilton Hotel. So after the event at the Palladium, Nat King Cole had to go and escort his daughter, and he told President Kennedy and Governor Brown, and they kind of were party crashers for that night, which is really exciting because that was the first time a sitting president came to an African American social gathering in the state of California. So it was a really big, monumental event.
Wow. And this ties into your exhibit, Rites and Rituals, the Making of African American Debutante Culture. Tell us more about that exhibit.
Oh, yeah. So for that, I'm really looking at the development of African American debutante culture, how the tradition, really started in Europe, and then was adapted into the East and the Southern states. However, what I found was really interesting about African American debutante culture, particularly, is how Black families really elevated this tradition by really investing in their daughters by way of education, providing scholarships. So now we're having, back in the late 1800s, early 1900s, Black women are going to HBCUs such as Spelman, Howard, and receiving educations, and these women are becoming the first Black librarians or first Black dentists and doctors and lawyers, and really seeing how these organizations are really investing in the Black community, especially within their daughters and women. And within this exhibition, it's really looking and elevating their stories and their achievements, both visible and invisible.
And it's important that we all continuously learn about this history. Thank you so much for joining us today, Taylor. For more information on these and other exhibits, go to caamuseum.org.